Welcome back to MMA Unhinged, and joining me today is Matt the Beast Bonner. Matt, how are you, and how are you feeling as we're just about a month, just over a month out from your fight?
Yeah, I'm feeling good, thank you. It's nice to have a fight that's reasonably close. I was unscathed from the last fight that was around the end of November, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And like I say, it's nice to have something in mind over Christmas.
Yeah, and I guess like I want to talk a little bit about that. Do you have any plans for Christmas? I know maybe you won't be able to eat as much, but do you have plans with family or friends?
It's very much a family Christmas, so I think we're having like a Christmas breakfast at my house initially. That gives me a chance to see my dad and my auntie, my mum and whatnot, and then it'll be me, myself, and my wife's mum just having Christmas lunch a little bit later on. And then I've got my birthday's Boxing Day, so my birthday's on the 26th. So then I'll see everyone again for that.
Yeah, you gotta love those Christmas birthdays. You and I both are both Christmas babies around here. Yeah, so are you able to eat much, or like I know it's been probably a frequent question that you get.
It's funny enough, my weight at the moment I'm like 87 kilo in the morning. I fight 84.5 kilo, so the weight isn't an issue at all. Like you say, I've talked to quite a lot of people about this. My weight is just kind of tumbling down over the course of the last kind of three months or so. I used to walk around about 92 kilo and then cut down to the 84 and a half. But for whatever reason, my weight seems to be tumbling down. I'm a lot more lean than I was. But on the other hand, I don't feel like I'm losing any strength or anything in the gym. So I'm quite good for an easy weight cut, and I can kind of feel my gut over Christmas a little bit more.
Excellent. And I just want to touch upon it real quick. Did you get to watch Patty the Batty fight last night, and did you get a chance to catch Leon's fight as well?
I've not seen it quite yet. I got home quite late yesterday. I was working. I work on a Sunday. I have my own gym, so I had a busy day today. So that's the mission of today is to catch up on Paddy's fight, especially, and then have a look at Lee Edwards as well.
And did you get to see any of his preparation getting ready for his fight?
Yeah, we train quite closely together. The whole team trains together every single morning for the most part. I did quite a few sparring rounds with Paddy, and he was super sharp. To be fair, it's no surprise to anyone who actually trains with Paddy. You know how good he is, and what he can do when he's at his best. And it's very pleasing to see him get the outcome he deserves last night.
Does it kind of like I know we just talked about dieting and getting ready for the fight. Does it kind of blow your mind how he's able to blow up so much and then cut so much?
I saw a video of him the other day. I think Cage Warriors might have put it up actually, and you forget how fat he gets in between fights. But I think that was probably an issue. I don't think he'll get that heavy ever again. He seems to be controlling his weight much better now between fights and during fight camps and whatnot. So I think that might be something of the past. I think he'll kind of blow up to kind of low 80s or something now, but I think when he was at his worst, he was touching 100 kilos. I think he has matured over the last couple of years, and I think he's going to keep his weight under much better control.
Excellent. And about you here, you're having a bit of a quick turnaround. You fought back in just last month, and now we're talking fight again in
Yeah.
January. Besides the call out from your opponent, was it the plan to fight so quickly, or I mean, you've talked about another interview. You thought about it for a couple of days. You're going to enjoy Christmas, and
Yeah.
now you're just like, no, I want to get back in. So was that the mindset?
Yeah, like you said, I kind of after the last fight, that was a tough one, but it was tough in different ways. It was tough mentally because I didn't know I had essentially a week's notice for that fight, and then before you know it, you're away in Germany. I'm away from me, me 7 month baby. There's a lot going on. I was a little bit injured going into that fight as well, and really, like I mentioned, had much of a camp, and so I think it was more mental fatigue at the end of that fight, and it was just a big, sigh of relief that it ended up going the way it did. And I got home, had a couple of days rest, and you think, you know what, I'm pretty sharp still. I've not took much damage. If any damage, I think I might have had a black eye. There was nothing, a cut or a broken bone or anything to that extent. And I thought, you know what, it's Newcastle. It's 3 hours away from where I live. It's not jumping on a
Mm-hmm.
plane. Let's see what they come up with.
And you've been primarily with Cage Warriors for a lot of your career, but now you're with Octagon. What do you think about the promotion, and how are you liking it so far?
I really enjoyed fighting in Germany. It's a fantastic promotion. It's very much on the rise. I never thought that I'd fight in front of 19,000 people before. I never thought that was going to be the case. And that was a great experience. That is something that I think will stick with me for the rest of my life. That's something I can tell people. I fought in front of nearly 20,000 people. The scale is, I would say, is bigger than next gen. Octagon seem to really want to kind of push the big stadium shows. They're looking at making like it a real event, where Cage Warriors was a fantastic show, really well put together extremely well in terms of the timing and everything, and your opponents, how professional it was. But it's not to the scale that Octagon is. I think Octagon are looking at pushing up into kind of the PFL kind of platform in terms of how big they want it to be. And they're willing on taking a bit more of a chance on that. Where I feel like Cage Warriors are very much kind of set in their ways. And this isn't a negative for Cage Warriors at all, but they like the smaller shows, shows in San Diego, shows they're going into Scotland and Wales more and Ireland now, but smaller shows where I say like Octagon are really wanting to extend and expand to the bigger stadiums.
Hmm. Yeah, and I guess like I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but no, and I definitely see Octagon really getting on that rise there. I think it's gonna be a really good promotion, a really good European promotion, really
Yeah,
making its ways. Speaking upon which, you got a fresh opponent, a high level Muay Thai guy, January 27th. Talking about this guy, I guess after his quick win, he called your name out, and he could have easily called out someone below him in the rankings, someone getting close to that title, but he chose you. Obviously, there must be a little bit of that respect there. So, what do you think about that? And was that was he kind of someone that you were looking at as well?
yeah. This is very interesting because I initially got offered Meti Penaz for my first Octagon
Okay.
fight. And then for whatever reason, he declined the fight to some extent. Whether I don't know the reasons. Again, I've said this on another interview. It wasn't because he's so, oh my god, I'm so scared. I'm at Bonner. I'm not fighting at Bonner. I don't believe it's that at all because he's a killer. This fella, he's a great fighter.
Hmm.
But for whatever reason, he didn't want to fight me. And then obviously, I mentioned in another podcast, I got offered Panyas and he turned it down. I don't know why. Blah blah blah. And then this is kind of that's got the wheels turning on this fight. So
Hmm.
I think Peñas did come back from quite a severe injury. He was out for 7 months with I think he badly injured his elbow or his shoulder. I believe it was his elbow. So whether he thought maybe he wanted a fight to work into before he fought me or before he fought someone higher up the rankings, that makes sense. But yeah, that fight was initially going to be November the 25th when I fought Shiada Kipper. Obviously now it's been pushed back to January. So he's a guy I have studied previously and someone I look very much forward to fighting.
Yeah, and I really want to talk about that fight. What do you think about your opponent and just the matchup that you have?
He's a very strong opponent. Like I say, I figured when the name came initially the first time, I thought right, okay, I'll do some research on this guy. And I was watching his fights. I was like, I'm having trouble here to think where I can take this fight because his striking is elite. Very tall guy, but very long in the arm, like unbelievably long in the arm. I've never seen anything like it before. And I thought, how can I win this fight? And there was like a few like sleepless nights trying to scratch my head, wondering how I was going to do this. And then he turned the fight down. And it was almost initially like a little bit of a relief. Like, thank God I don't need to worry about the strategy fighting this guy and I can move on to somebody else. Beat Shiada Kipper in November. And then I've looked back on Peñas and it's like I'm fighting a different person now. I'm massively confident about it. So you can kind of see the to and fro with the mentality. You come off a good win and you feel unbeatable. So it'd be very interesting. It's almost like I'm fighting a different guy. I can see some of the holes in his game. I can see where I can exploit him.
Hmm.
Maybe because I've got more time now over Christmas to really break him down. There's more of a confidence there now than there was when I first was potentially going to fight him.
What would it mean for you to be the first one to finish Mete Peñas?
Yeah, I mean, he's been guillotined before. His only losses on the UFC Contender Series, but he has been finished. I watched one of his Glory fights today actually because he, kickboxed a lot in Glory, and he got finished in there as well. In terms of the experience he's got, it's quite a lot less experience than the last guy that I thought. We're very similar. He had a kickboxing background as well. Obviously, the difference with Penaz is um, he's had a little bit more MMA experience. He's pretty much come through the Octagon um, organization, and he's a southpaw. That can be a little bit tricky if you don't plan for it, if you don't strategize properly. So
Hmm.
he's very good. He's a stiff test. I've actually said a few times. I think he's probably the toughest guy in the division. Personally, I think he's that good. And if I get past Penaz, I think that means really I should be looking at, well, top two or in a more contendership position.
And speaking about your opponent, how would you like to finish this fight?
I don't. When it comes to finishing, I mean, you always like a TKO or a knockout because that just completely nobody can
It's what
kind of argue with that at all. It's a clean finish, but
it's what the
obviously
crowd
I've got a
wants,
lot of.
right?
It's what the crowd wants, of course. We're all looking for that kind of social media moment now where they can throw up a clip on Instagram for 10 seconds and get 10,000 clicks. So that's
Hmm.
always appealing. But obviously, and this won't be any surprise to Penhars, I've had a lot of finishes on the ground with rear naked chokes and chokes and whatnot. So, I don't think I'm going to kind of stand there scratching my chin, wondering, oh, I'm just about to get my rear naked choke, but I'll stand it back up and I'll knock him out. If I see the finish, I'll go for the finish. But like I say, tough guy. Finishing, I always used to kind of rattle me a little bit when Dana White used to say, if you don't want to leave it to the judges, then you just got to finish your opponent. You think these are tough guys.
Hmm.
They're very, very highly rated guys, and they're not easy to finish. And there's a lot of money at stake from his side, especially. So, and there's a lot of potential in terms of him possibly moving on to the UFC after winning this fight. So, obviously you want the finish, but a win will be fine. I'll just be happy with a win.
100%. And I know you're focused on this fight, but you win this fight, and do you feel like one more fight after this would get you that title shot? Is that what you want? Are you open to even branching out to like a contender series or UFC or other organizations?
Yeah, I think all those are good opportunities.
Hmm.
Let's face it, I started the sport when I was 17 years old, and I started it because I wanted to be in the UFC. So if the
Hmm.
UFC came about, then fantastic. Is the UFC going to come about for me? I'm 33 on Boxing Day. I don't know. Maybe I'm not the easiest guy to promote. I'm not this super good looking guy who's got a really quick, sharp mouth or anything. Who knows? But let's see what opportunities come out. In terms of Octagon, I think at the most one more fight should put me in a position where I'm fighting for the title. Again, especially against someone who's so tough like Penaz. And you do like to think, I took the last fight on short notice. I feel like I've almost done the organisation a little bit of a favour doing that. I was against a 6-0 guy. I was in Germany, which was his home country. And I feel like, I've put myself out there. Now I'm fighting their top boy in Penaz, who I feel is that Octagon's golden boy, personally. Um, so, yeah, I think if I get past Penaz, that should put me in a really, really strong position going forward.
Excellent. And I only can imagine that you're obviously in fight camp. So, is there anyone that you're training with specifically to prepare for his kind of style?
The person I'm training with most at the moment is my brother Dan. Obviously,
That
Dan
and
is
that's what I would have thought. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He's maybe not 6'4" like Peñas, but he's 6'2". His striking is world class. He's second best in the world at his weight class. Would have been first best in the world, but he unfortunately the last fight didn't happen in Australia. His opponent missed weight, so that didn't happen. But he's world class, and I think that really established itself in my mind how good Dan was when I fought the guy in the last fight. He had 61 kickboxing fights, 49 wins. And as soon as I started fighting this guy, I thought he's nowhere near the level of Dan. He's nowhere near as good. And I think that will probably be the case when I fight Penaz as well. Dan is unbelievable. Again, Dan's not a southpaw, but he can be a southpaw. He's competent enough to be a southpaw. So yeah, very much going to be training with Dan. He's not got any fights in the near
Hmm.
future as far as he knows. So it's very much kind of a focus on myself. And and Dan's going to be there in the gym with me pretty much every day, helping me towards this fight.
And just to elaborate on that, I'm just gonna sidetrack for a second. With Daniel's fight, obviously it's unfortunate the way how everything kind of happened in Australia. He was supposed to have a big fight. Obviously, fight was stopped. Like I mean, like it was such short notice. I mean, your brother was in the middle of a weight cut. I mean, like I obviously he was devastated, but for you to be his brother and to be a supporter, how, how did you have to stay strong for him and have his back? Like, what was there anything you did to kind of help him through that process?
I tend to try and be very straight to the facts, almost blunt in a sense, where it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, Dan, you've done your part. You can't control what's happened. Let's move on to an extent. Let's get past this. It's okay to have that sulk about it initially. Of course, you're on the other side of the world. You've missed time away from your family and whatnot, but now you're back.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's done and over. Let's just move past it. And I feel kind of it's frustrating where a lot of friends and family almost want to keep bringing it up, and it's like picking at the scab. It's like just let it go. It's
Yeah.
not happened. We can't turn back time. It's not Dan's fault. He's not missed weight. He's done everything he could to possibly prepare for that fight. Let's stop talking about it. Let's stop bitching about George, man. Let's just go into the next year thinking about what's next
Mm-hmm.
and what happened, 2 months ago.
Yeah, and that's just it. Things happen. This is the sport, and things happen. Opponents
Yeah,
don't make weight. People get sick. People get injured. Things happen.
yeah,
And then that being said, talking about you here, I mean, I know you like to be active. You've had an active 2 years.
yeah.
So you're starting off the year on January 27th. So would you like maybe 3 or 4 more fights in 2024?
The goal is I've signed a full battle agreement with Octagon. It would be
Okay.
getting through that 4 fights as fast as possible, honestly, because whether what people think about this, whatever they can think, but I'm very much motivated by earning money now. I've got a young family, I've got a son,
Mm-hmm.
um, and if I am going to be in the gym every morning, 4 hours a day, as long as I've got another job in terms of running my gym as well, if I'm going to be out the house, I'm going to be missing time with my family and my son. It has to be worthwhile. This can't be a passion project anymore because I don't come first. I've got a mortgage like everybody else. I've got bills. My wife isn't working any longer because she wants to be a full time mum, and I fully support her in that. That was something we agreed on before she got pregnant. So as
Mm-hmm.
long as I'm healthy, as long as I'm fit, as long as I'm improving in the gym and enjoying it in the gym to some extent, then I want to be fighting as often as possible.
Yeah, and I completely respect that. And it can be tough for a lot of fighters in that position. That being said, so I mean, do you have any other plans like for 2024 besides the fighting? Is there anything that you're in personal life or anything with your gym that you plan on doing for 2024?
There's in terms of the gym, we've been quite successful this year, especially. So we want to try and expand the gym that we've got at the moment. It's too small for the members. We're about 1,000 square foot, and we probably need at least double that space. So the idea going forward into 2024 would be to try and expand, get a bigger gym, have a bigger presence, in a local area, and essentially try and be the gym in the area, which I think we already are in terms of quality training. But you find some. This is the tough thing about me and Dan in terms of fighting. He's jet setting all over the world and winning world titles. I'm trying to get world titles myself and try and keep busy. But there is a gym as well, and there's fighters coming up. There's people who want to come through the ranks and fight themselves. So it's trying to find a balance between you know, accomplishing our own dreams and helping people achieve theirs as well. So there's very much going to be a bit of a push this year for a bigger gym, and hopefully have more fights personally. Watch Dan win some more world titles. In terms of family, I think at some point we'll probably try for another baby as well. I think the Arthur's coming up to kind of 8 months old in December, so yeah, you'd be have a little sibling. That'd be nice.
Well, excellent to hear. I'm glad to hear it. And again, it's always a pleasure chatting with you. It's been a while, and MMA Unhinged is always thrilled to have you on. And we always appreciate you taking the time to come on here and chat with us about your fights. And just good luck on January 27th.
Thank you, Luke. Thanks for having me on again, pal.
All right, you take care, Matt.
You too, pal. Thank you.